Tao Meeting Archives, July 26, 2015. The Tao of Meditation, Concentration, by Ed Monaghan.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting beginning ritual, everyone. 起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
I am going to launch off. It's actually a good segue, speaking of Taiwan, because we had a Taiwanese visitor this week. We have a Chinese couple who bring their children to our facility, and they're participating in our summer camps. And they have a friend from Taiwan who came in with his kids, and they kept telling me that I really needed to meet this person because he's a Tao practitioner, and he would really understand what I convey to them. And they're one of the few people that I bring in that look at the shrine and can actually read the Chinese on the shrine. And the gentleman came in, and he had good English, and I had a wonderful opportunity to exchange with him, and he was so surprised to walk into our classroom where we have a very big symbol of the Tao on the wall, and he asked me, why do you do that? What does Tao mean to you? And I think it seems to have been his experience that others who he has made contact with in the West perhaps have a different understanding of Tao. And I attempted to explain it by saying, well, first let me preface this by saying that the parents who come here had told me that this gentleman has a very special set of skills, that he can feel and read energy, and that he is a specialist with the I Ching. And so I was excited to meet him because that kind of reminded me of what Derek has said about Janice's father. And so when he came in and asked me that question, I began to attempt to explain my understanding of Tao, which is this universal force, this presence, energy that surrounds us and is us, the essence of everything, that truth behind all truths, and the truth behind all expressions of different forms of religion, and that type of truth. And he nodded and acknowledged, and he told me, very good, very good. I say, it's nature. And what struck me when he said that is how simple that is to convey, and what it struck me, the simplicity of someone who's a practitioner of the Tao, who has advanced level of understanding and can encapsulate everything I was trying to convey with a lot of words with one word, and how that definition of Tao can have multiple levels of meaning that's easily understood by everyone, regardless of their level of practice and their level of cultivation. And when I asked him and described to him, I showed him our curriculum and what we teach the children and what we teach the adults that I've taken, from the Tao teachings, from Lao Tzu, Confucianism, where I've taken from the principles of Yikon Tao and sort of adapted them into our lesson-based format. He nodded and asked how we were doing. I said, well, we're doing very well. I said that I find that it's difficult sometimes to convey these messages to our, our indigenous population, because they sometimes the teachings, they're a little bit difficult to understand, or they don't quite relate to them so much. And he said, Tao Te. And from speaking with Darren previously and going through a variety of evolutions in developing what's being conveyed here, one of the terms that I learned is the equivalent of virtue. And so I immediately understood what he was saying. And I think he was pleased to see that I understood what he was saying. And he said, Tao Te, if you continue to practice Tao Te, then children will change. Their actions will change because they're exposed to the true teachings. And when their behavior changes, their parents see the behavior changes, and then they will change. And it's a very slow process, but that's how this will grow. It's from the experience. He didn't say anything about advertising, didn't say anything about communication of message. He just said Tao Te. And I thought that was a very insightful message and a great experience for me to meet someone who is on the path. And it was also pretty funny. He met my wife right after that, and she has been kind of in an Attila the Hun phase of her expression recently because of some issues we've had with some folks. And the first thing he said to her is, softer, softer, yin. Must find more yin. So that was kind of funny at the time. And she understood that as well. So I wanted to share that with you guys and use that as a lead-in to our, what I had, the path that I embarked on last week, which was a discussion about meditation and different approaches to meditation. Last week, we discussed mindfulness-based meditation. And this week, we're going to focus on concentration-based meditation. Notice I said focus on concentration-based meditation, which is directing one's focus toward a single thought or an action. Now, what I've done is I've pulled a description that I think is a bit is well stated. And I first want to just say that I have not studied with this particular Lama, but I enjoyed his description of contemplative and concentration-based meditation. So I'm just going to read this, and you can follow along if you like. Lama Tsongkhapa taught that we should practice both contemplative meditation and concentration meditation. In the former, we investigate the object of meditation by contemplating it in all its details. In the latter, we focus single-pointedly on one aspect of the object and hold our mind on it without movement. Single-pointed concentration, samadhi, is a meditative power that is useful in either of these two types of meditation. However, in order to develop samadhi itself, we must cultivate principally concentration meditation. And of course, samadhi, another way of saying that, is understanding or awakening. In terms of practice, this means that we must choose an object of concentration and then meditate single-pointedly on it every day until the power of samadhi is attained. The 5 great obstacles to samadhi are laziness, forgetfulness, mental wandering, and depression, failure to correct any of these above problems when they arise, and applying meditative opponents to problems that are not there. That is, they are purely imaginary. So I think this harkens back to something that Bibi was referring to when she observed the level of cultivation in Taiwan of the people she met. which is this element of laziness, forgetfulness, and having a lackadaisical attitude. This is something I know that I certainly combat, and unless there is some method by which I'm motivated to better myself, that's a natural pattern of human existence, choosing the course of least resistance. And I think the unconscious behavior that we see exhibited around us every day is a good indication of that. So this does require energy. It requires work, the movement of the wheels of karma. So it takes effort. And then we derive benefit from that. The failure to correct problems when arise is a reference to the poisons of the mind and applying the antidotes to the poison of the mind, which is basically contrary action, meaning that we have one of these negative experiences or thoughts or states of mind, then we simply have to choose contrary action in order to overcome that obstacle as it's set forth in our path. And the last I found very interesting also, applying meditative opponents to problems that are not there. That is, they're purely imaginary. Well, I know that I have been guilty of creating imaginary obstacles in my own mind many times, creating antagonism and worry over things that simply do not exist. And so that's a reference to this very natural human tendency, and to create a state of consciousness that allows us to be able to see beyond that and recognize that these are obstacles that we have created with our own mental constructs, with our imagination, and they're simply illusory. There are wisps of mist. So this goes on and discusses how to achieve this. What do we choose as an object of meditation? It can be anything: a stone, fire, a piece of wood, a table, and so forth, so long as it does not cause delusions such as desire or aversion to arise. We should also avoid an object that has no qualities specifically significant to our spiritual path. Some teachers have said that we should begin with fire and later change to swirling clouds and so forth, but this is not an effective approach. Choose one object and stick to it. Many people choose the symbolic form of a Buddha or a meditational deity as their object. The former has many benefits and is a great blessing. The latter provides a special preparation for higher tantric practice. In the beginning, we can place a statue or a painting of an object or of meditation in front of us and look at it as we concentrate. But as it is our mind, not our eyes, that we want to develop, this should be done only until familiarity with the object is gained. The most important point is to settle on one object and not change it. There are stories of great saints who chose the form of a yak as their object, but generally it is better to select an object of greater spiritual value and not change it until at least the first of the 4 levels of samadhi is attained. So for anybody out there who's wanting to choose a yak, perhaps that's probably not the best way to go. Consistency in practice is also important. Once we begin, we should continue every day until we reach our goal. If the conditions are perfect, we can do this in 3 months or so. But practicing an hour a day for a month and then missing a day or 2 will result in minimal progress. Constant, steady effort is necessary. We will need to follow a fixed daily schedule of meditation. And again, this harkens back to this issue of discipline, self-discipline practice, which can ultimately lead to freedom. But it doesn't seem to work the other way around. We have to place effort and concentration so that we can derive these benefits. So if we look at concentration-based meditation, The corollary I've used, the metaphor is it's like weightlifting for your brain. Concentration combined with contemplation yields insight. And insight meditation, that some of you may be familiar with, is a component of mindfulness-based meditation. So we first have to be able to develop the strength in our mind to hold a thought, to steady our attention, to be able to focus. And that is not an easy task. It requires a substantial amount of practice. So, which is better? Concentration, contemplation, insight meditation, mindfulness? So there it is. Is it the chicken or the egg? And again, I would assert that there are prescribed paths out of many different practices that vary. Many schools of thought. And my personal opinion is that we go where we're drawn, and we will find the right path if our desire, if our drive to seek truth is pure and genuine, then we will be led to the correct path. My example is that I was led to the path of the Tao. I was led straight to the temple. First thing, I studied with many teachers, but when I made a concentrated effort in saying, I want to learn about Taoism, I want to learn the Tao, I've learned about it on an academic level for many years. I've practiced it in martial arts, but I want to learn from an authentic source. Very first thing that I found was the website Derek created, and the day that we walked into the temple was when we were initiated by Janice and Derek as our initiators, so or our sponsors into the Tao. And I think really it is that simple. The path makes itself apparent when it's time. So what I would like to do is, as we did last week, give a very short example of this form of meditative practice. And I will attempt to activate the audio here. And what I've chosen for that is a simple Om mantra. Now, the Om mantra is described as the universal sound. It is the root essence of creation. It is Tao, and Tao is it. Very interesting that Eben Alexander's book about his near-death experience said that his experience of the highest level of consciousness while in his 7-day coma was that of what he refers to as Om. And that was the distinct, clear sound, the message, not even a sound, but a feeling, an essence that he experienced when he was traveling outside of his body. So if this works, if you could join me, straighten your back, sit up straight in your chair, put your feet flat on the floor, and place your hands in a comfortable position, wherever it might be that's comfortable for you, on your knees, in your lap, in Samadhi Mudra, or whatever suits you. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose. And slowly allow it to escape from your mouth. And if the sound comes through, just allow your consciousness to fall on the sound. Maintain a regular and steady breath, and just for about a minute, we'll just simply experience the chant of the Om mantra. take a deep breath in through your nose. Let it out slowly through your mouth. And then gently open your eyes. So that is a very brief example of concentration-based meditation. It's very pleasant. Sometimes as we embark on this path, the sound meditations are easier for some people to start. The imagery-based meditations sometimes are a bit more difficult, but it depends on the individual. The idea, though, is that we allow our mind to be focused on a single point. And it's not an issue of forcing your mind to stay. It's an issue of allowing it to be free to focus on a single point. And when it strays, to simply observe and gently guide it back to that point of concentration again. So it isn't an issue of force, it's more an issue of compliance. So I hope that was a useful meditation today, and you enjoyed the talk, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Thank you so much, Ed. I think, to quote from what John Kabat-Zinn has said in the past, that when you realize that your attention has wandered off into thinking about something else in the middle of the meditation, the moments of realization is also the moments that you are able to bring it back. And therefore, he said, rather than to berate yourself, rather than to be hard on yourself, that you shouldn't have let your mind wander like that, try the opposite, which is to regard your becoming mindfully aware of wandering thoughts in a celebration mentality, that, hey, this is what this training is supposed to do, is to cause me to become more mindfully aware, and that awareness is what informs me that my mind has wandered off. So yay for me. It's a good thing that I'm welcoming back my thoughts.
That's a great example. I was watching a movie with Joanne yesterday called The Boxer with Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale. And I was very impressed with particularly Christian Bale's performance, in that he was a wonderful example of unconscious behavior and being able to embody the essence of that. And I think that's kind of an apropos metaphor for what we're attempting to do with mindfulness, is to recognize when we're not mindful, recognize when we're not conscious, and that completely changes the perspective, and I think our perspective on the world.
About the I Ching master that asked you about the meaning of Tao, that's a very interesting exchange for me. It's a good follow-up on what we talked about last time. This gentleman was similar to many other Asians who are wary. When they see something like the huge Tao calligraphy that you have, they're always cautious, because what they normally encounter is not someone who is knowledgeable about the subject matter. They usually encounter Westerners who are, quote unquote, into it, just because it happens to be the trendy thing to do. And that's why last time I talked about how there's always that wariness about the Western identity tourists, people that try on different identities to see how they feel, whereas Asians themselves emphasize deep understanding and commitment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So I think he recognized the understanding and commitment within you, Ed. So that's a very positive thing.
I think so. It was really nice to have the connection with him. Very pleasant to have someone who was not associated with me or with the temple in any way, who just came in independently, who's a Tao practitioner from Taiwan, and just had that nice connection. It was really a very pleasant experience.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting closing ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位点传世一鞠躬，结班一鞠躬。Okay, guys, we are done.
Join the Tao meeting live to participate in the questions and commentary. For more information, go to http://taoism.net/tao/connect-online.